Okay, we have another update on Kratom. Actually, just another well-written story. This one's called Lawmakers Urge DEA to Reconsider the Hasty Ban of Opiate-like Kratom. This is by Eric Boudman. When the Drug Enforcement Administration announced in late August that it would outlaw the opiate-like plant Kratom, the reaction was immediate. Kratom sellers threatened legal action. Over 130,000 people signed a petition to stop the ban, and some 400 users marched in front of the White House with kids wearing shirts that said, "Kratom saved my mom." Did the DEA hear them? Not sure yet. So now the members of Congress have gotten involved. We have the bipartisan letter that was floating around Congress asking the DEA to delay the Kratom ban, calling the decision hasty, and pointing out that there were no opportunity for public comment. By Thursday, about 25 House members had signed on, according to Representative Mark Pocan, a Democrat from Wisconsin who spearheaded the project, with Republican Representative Matt Salmon of Arizona. The signatories included Representatives John Conyers Jr., a Democrat from Michigan, the longest-serving congressman, and a member of the House Judiciary Committee, a Republican Representative, Dr. Dan Benishek, also of Michigan, who is a family doctor and a general surgeon. So Michigan representatives, if not getting involved on a proactive level, at least were on the pro side of signing this. Pocan's office plans to send the letter Monday after collecting a few more signatures. And if you haven't already and you've seen this video or you've seen previous videos that I've done or videos that other people in the Kratom community have done, or if you are a Kratom user, be it for medicinal purposes or to save your life from opiates or just recreational or whatever the case may be, get politically active, contact your representative, and tell them to sign on to this. It's not that hard to do. Here is Pocan's quote: "We have a very close family friend in Colorado who has a number of ailments, but one is mast cell disorder. Her hands get hard to move. It's very difficult pain for her," he told STAT, which is the publication that Eric Boudman, who wrote this article, that's Stat News, by the way. Alright, she tried a number of drugs, including steroids, but the only thing that helped was Kratom. He became worried when he heard the DEA was unilaterally classifying the substance as Schedule 1, which would make it illegal as heroin, without any possibility for researchers and consumers to comment, or representatives that represent those people. He became, they really haven't done what I would consider due diligence, he said. With Schedule 1, there is supposed to be no medicinal use, and there are at least 3 patents pending for medicinal uses of Kratom. The DEA can temporarily outlaw a substance that constitutes a public health crisis without any outside input if the FDA has not approved the drug. Over the next 2 or 3 years, the Department of Health and Human Services then determines whether the drug is indeed a threat. If so, the ban becomes permanent. If not, it is reversed. That's kind of funny because if you think about PCP, angel dust or whatever, Sherm, one of the most dangerous drugs ever to be approved by the U.S. Pharmacological Oversight branch of the government, which is either the FDA or something like the FDA before the FDA, and then the DEA kind of just like it says here, they just kind of look at something, and if they see it as a public health threat, then they act on it. Now, PCP was discovered in a lab, kind of like, whoops, what's this? And then they looked at what it did, and they were like, wow, this is kind of crazy. But it was still the government still allowed pharmaceutical companies to experiment with it, to prescribe it, and even use it in like a, I don't know if it was in a surgery setting or whatever, as an anesthesia. So I don't know how, for something that you have to have a lab to concoct, then every consideration is given to you. But if it's just something that anybody can grow in their backyard, the DEA is quick to say, nope, no one can touch it until we say so, or until the FDA says so. And if the DEA says no first, the FDA won't be able to say so, because nobody will research it, and the FDA requires rigorous research and trials and tests and all that stuff. Anyway, so Spokane, however, is concerned the DEA hasn't done enough research, and the DEA don't. That's not their job. The DEA doesn't have a research arm of their office where they're like, oh, let's put this to the test and see if it's actually dangerous or not. I mean, if so, marijuana's never been proven to be dangerous in any way, shape, or form, and yet that's still Schedule 1, so the DEA definitely doesn't do research or even care about research or even just obvious facts. So he wanted to learn more, and that's Spokane, so he invited Susan Ash, the director of the American Kratom Association, to his office. It was unique, said Ash. I've been a lobbyist for much of my life. I've never had an congressional office directly reach out asking for a face-to-face meeting. Last week, the night before she would lead the march in front of the White House, Ash told Spokane that her story of chronic pain, opiate addiction, and redemption was through Kratom. It was just one story of many that members of Congress have been hearing from constituents. They have called in to talk about using Kratom as an alternative to opiates. Calls have also come from veterans who use the plant, either swallowed or as a powder, taken as a pill, or drank as a tea to control their post-traumatic stress disorder. Members of Congress noted that once Kratom becomes illegal, even temporarily, it'll be hard for research on the substance to move forward, as it has been for medical marijuana. And if you're like me and you're in the marijuana world all your life fighting for that and the laws of change, I'm 44 years old. I've been fighting for marijuana laws of change since I was about 15, I would say. So I'm almost 45, so that would mark that'd mark a lot of time, man. From 15 to 45 is 30 years of trying everything I could do and watching others that had more power than me do everything they could do to try to churn around laws that were made just basically out of racism as a way to subjugate minority races, especially the Mexicans at the time. That's why marijuana is illegal still to this day. And of course, all the corporate interests that want to keep it illegal. We'll get into that in another story. That's another day. But what I'm saying is you see that once the DEA puts this thing in Schedule 1, it's really hard to go backwards. It's really hard to turn that one around. I would almost say kiss Kratom goodbye on the regular market if this happens. And I keep getting comments. People keep telling me, man, quit being so negative about it. I'm not trying to be negative about it. I'm just trying to be real about it. I don't have any pipe dreams about it. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at somebody that's trying to keep it legal. The DEA has made a statement, and here it is, in early September. That was the most recent statement they said. And they said it was definitely going to happen, that at least the temporary ban, as early as September 30th, so we have like less than a week, and they said that they would respond to the letter from Congress, but they're not going to comment on that letter until the letter was received. And from what we know so far, their comments have been basically like, we don't really care what you say or do. We've already made up our minds. So maybe they've changed. Maybe they could have a change of heart. I really, I doubt it. But I mean, I hate to sound negative about this, but this is the DEA we're talking about. They're looking at their excuse to exist as being kind of like, what are you going to do now? You know, marijuana seemed like one of the big things you guys had, and, you know, like, that was a big deal. And then there's all these synthetic drugs out there, this K2 and the spice and all that, the cannabinoids, which the DEA, if it was a modern organization, should be able to classify these as they come along. You know, there's an excuse out there. It's kind of a false excuse. They're saying, oh, well, you know, they just changed the chemical composition a little bit and blah, blah, blah. You know, all you got to do is blanket that. You know, you blanket that with cannabis and say that anything on a cannabis is a plant. A seed is a plant. It's not even in dirt yet, but somehow that's a plant. And somehow that's considered marijuana. Any part of the plant is considered a drug, even though most of it can't get you high. So the DEA is using a double standard here, where they say we can, you know, look at this Kratom thing like a blanket thing. We can do marijuana like a blanket thing, on a different level. And when you say their minds have already been made up, or when they say that, I'm not saying it, but when it is said that their minds have made up, what that tells me is an experienced person that reports on these things and that studies these things and has been, like I said, an activist fighting these things my whole life. When I hear that, what that's really saying, if you read between the lines there, is they already know where all the distribution networks are. They know the manufacturers. They know how they have their setup, and that they are entrenched. Obviously, they have investments and they have to pay bills and blah blah blah. So they're going to operate right up until the minute where the DEA is kicking in their door and shutting them down. And it's already happening in states that have kind of went. They jumped the gun. I want to say it was Alabama that made Kratom illegal back in May. And ever since then, you've been hearing nothing but story after story after story coming out about, you know, 50-pound bust here, 60-pound bust there, millions of capsules here, blah, blah, blah. And that's because those distribution and sales networks were already in play. They, like I said, they're already owing people money for supply and demand that's already been pre-planned out, because that's how all businesses operate. You know, you don't order stuff when people are at your store wanting it. You order stuff because you know people are going to be coming and getting it. And after a certain amount of time of doing business, you know how much Kratom is going out the door at your gas station or at your herbal shop or whatever, wherever it's distributed. So, and I mean, I don't need to sound like the negative nanny and all that stuff, but the DEA looks to me like they want to make a big statement on October, you know, like the first week or two of October. They're going to be exercising their authority and making a lot of fuss and making a big statement. I hope that they change their mind. I really do. But that's the update for the day. I'm Kratom.